foremost when it comes to environmental research.
For everyone, and we were succeeded in inviting some really good examples here from policy, but also from the civil society. And my job again is to introduce basically Susanne Stormer, alias Sus. You just told me, it's like it's your short name. It's also for sustainability, because she's Miss Sustainability. She's working at Novo Nordisk, and she's taking over the moderator role here. At Novo Nordisk she is, and I have to look for the long title, Vice President for Corporate Sustainability and the Chief Sustainability Officer. But I've known Susanne for quite a few years, I think 5 years for now, because she's also an adjunct professor for corporate sustainability at CBS. So welcome, and I give the floor to you.
Thank you, Wencke, very much. And I hope that you can all hear us all the way up in the back. We would like to make this panel session interactive so that we have time to address your questions. We noted that there was hunger for some sharp questions before lunch. We trust that even if you didn't have lunch, that you would still be hungry for good answers. So we'll do our very best to deliver that. And to do that, I have a wonderful panel. I have Søren Hermansen, I have Pedersen, and I've got Steffen Rasmussen, and I will introduce them very briefly in a moment. We would like to address what was the task we were given, the problem statement we were given, is to address examples of best practices from a business perspective, and also to share visions for a future in which we have sustainable consumption. And what we would like to do is actually also to encourage you as researchers to think about, what's the kind of interaction that we can have with you. So that's what I've been doing in my role, is to swap between those two positions. So we're talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, and the one that's in focus here is the number 12 on ensuring sustainable consumption and production patterns, that talk about how we need to achieve sustainable management and efficient use of natural resources, how we need to halve per capita food waste at retail and consumer levels, how companies must adopt sustainable practices and report on it, and how people everywhere should have relevant information and awareness for sustainable development so that they can make better informed choices. So that's a tall challenge, and to address that we have chosen for the panel different perspectives. And I think in these gender equality times, I should apologize on behalf of the panel that we have 2 male persons on the panel and only 1 woman on the panel, which is due to the fact that we were supposed to have 2 women, but one of them is still preaching in Madrid, so she couldn't make it. Selina Juhl, who was supposed to talk about food waste, so we will do what we can to cover it. And then I would say we compensate for the previous panel in which there was only 1 man. So I think we are even by now. So let me first introduce the panel briefly. So Søren has been named the Al Gore of Denmark. And that's quite a tall, that's big shoes to fill. But for sure, you will be talking about your experience from Samsø, a beautiful island not too distant from here, in the middle of Denmark actually, and where you are the director of the Samsø Energy Academy. And then we have Charlotte Pedersen, who is responsible for GAIN, and GAIN is an alliance that is furthering, promoting good nutrition, and working in partnerships, so we'll be talking about that. And then we have Steffen, who came here on bike, I'm sure, because Steffen works in the city of Copenhagen as head of Department of Traffic and Urban Life, so now you know what you're in for. So maybe starting with Søren, you talk a lot about commodities, about the common and the communities. So give us a little bit of insight. What is so important about commodities?
Well, first of all, it's an non-existing word. We invented it for the reason that we needed kind of a value word that described a common, which is kind of all the resources we share, administrated by community. And because I mean, commodity, is that acceptable? I mean, for people who speak English, commodity. It's a new word. I think it will be in the dictionary in the near future. I'm pretty sure you'll get the hang of it. What it's all about. I'm sure. I like to talk from a local perspective because I think locality and the sense of belonging is part of the whole equation when you talk about how to commit yourself to a sustainable lifestyle and to kind of commit yourself to the responsibility that follows a lifestyle of kind of the Western world. So I've been working for many years in the local community, which is an island, to convince the local people that they should invest in renewable energy technology. So today we are more than self-supplied by renewables. We actually do export quite a lot of kilowatt hours to maybe to Copenhagen because the big city needs more energy than they can produce themselves. So we have a carbon footprint of minus 7.3 tons per capita on Samsø because due to the export of energy. So that's pretty cool. I mean, we solve the problems more or less in the community. But the big deal is that we own the facility also. So the commodity, the word is local ownership and responsibility in real time and full scale. So when we introduce a new development tool, we invite the public or the people, the citizens of the community to talk about what is next to us, what is the next challenge to overcome, to be more sustainable, to be more resource responsible in the future. And then we sit down and talk about how much can we afford to invest in the new structure and how do we share this cost in kind of this local ownership. So we don't really believe in the central top-down administration so much anymore. We believe that there is a necessary structure kind of that has to be handled by people like the person in the panel here. But on the other side, we also need to be responsible as citizens and consumers. And ownership with responsibility kind of goes hand in hand. So when you have convinced people to participate, they also go all in because now I'm stakeholder. Now I'm part of the equation, and therefore I have to work harder to get to the point where we say that now we have achieved what we set off to do in the beginning. So I think basically that is my job. That is to work with communities. And I mean, this is 20 years ago we started with this, and we have invested like more than $80 million worth of energy installations on my island, which is only 3,700 people altogether. So that's a lot of money per capita, but it's all bank financed because energy prices are so high. So it's cheaper to produce and purchase our own energy locally than to import fuel from outside to run the business. So the interesting thing that, is this now scalable? I mean, somebody would say, could we do this in all of Copenhagen, or could we do it in Cairo, in Egypt? And recently I had a visit from the ambassador of Egypt to Denmark, who then asked me the same question. Can we scale Samsø up to do all of Cairo? And that's a really crazy question, because I can't answer that question. So I said to him, maybe we can do it, but it has to be one block at a time. Because it's about getting to know the possibilities instead of just the overall perspective. And I think because that is too abstract and people don't know how that is working. We work in Japan, we work in America. I mean, the state of Maine, it's a poor state, and they have a lot of problems with jobs and unemployment. They have a lot of problems because they don't have any companies anymore in Maine. If you go a little bit away from the coast, then you have trailer parks and really poor people. And they are looking for the next job. And we are looking at them being self-supplied with renewables also. So I think that the scalability is about looking at the burning platform and getting to know what it's all about, and then get people activated and giving them some responsibility and having them to realize what is the possibilities and what can we do with it.
Great, thank you so much. And I think I was in a discussion in Cairo some years ago about CSR, and and within 5 minutes we got to talk about traffic. So I guess that he would have to be joined by Steffen to then also talk about introducing biking in Cairo to make it really sustainable. But that's another story. So now we have renewable energy. Then we also need food. And a lot of your organization works for making nutritious and safe foods more available, affordable, and desirable for those in need, is what you say. And you do that through stimulating collaboration to develop what is called market-based nutrition solutions. So tell us what that is, and what is it that you expect to achieve through this approach?
Yeah, so we heard a very local perspective, so I would like to take a very global perspective. It's also in the name of our organization, the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition. So another is alliances, so it's about trying to do things together. So if you take one step back, and I'm of course interested indeed in nutrition, and this is a huge problem that is, every state in the world is facing, because we have about 2 billion people who actually go to bed with not having enough nutrition, so vitamins and minerals, and even about 800 million that are going hungry to bed. But we also have on the other side 2 billion people that are obese or overweight. So even some of them would have both. Let's just say that half of the world's population are really having the wrong diets. And when we then know that the wrong diets actually are causing diseases that, and directly related to that, are causing more disease than if you take alcohol use, tobacco, smoking, drugs, and air pollution, unsafe sex, all together. It's not even causing the same amount of burden when we look at disease. So it is immense. So how can we try and change this? I am actually not a nutritionist myself, and it took a little while for me to really comprehend what does it actually mean, and especially the concept of the 1,000 days. I don't know if any of you have heard the concept of 1,000 days.
I think you should explain it. It's a good story.
Yeah, it is when the child is conceived, so the mother gets pregnant when it lives in the womb, and born, get breast milk, and until its 2nd year's birthday, it is absolutely essential that you get the right nutrients, so vitamins, minerals, proteins, and so forth. If you do not get that, you will really lose out for the rest of your life. You're getting chronically malnourished, which means that your brain will not develop to the full potential, a big chance of getting a lower IQ, the immune system is not as effective as it could be. So that is having an effect for the rest of the life. This is irreversible, so you cannot change this again.
So blame your parents.
And actually, for myself, what did I eat when I was pregnant and so on, and my mother took a smoke immediately after she gave birth and so on. But that was back in the 60s. But so I think it really relates to everybody. You start thinking, wow, and it's of course for the individual it's a huge, because you don't have the same learning capacity and so forth, and be able to just live productive, healthy life and care for your family if you are already born with a handicap. But also if you look at this on a state level, I mean from Ethiopia, which is about 40% of children have this, we call it stunting, and it means that they lose out actually 16% of their GDP can be counted back to this. And I mean many of the countries where we work in is Sub-Saharan Africa and Southeast Asia. We have around this 40% of people being stunted. So this is just, okay, how can we then work together to work on this? Because food we get from the private sector, right? So the private sector must be at the core of it. And for the private sector to get engaged and want to work on this, there needs to be a demand for this nutritious food. So that is one of the key things we work on. And typically, traditionally NGOs and maybe also sometimes researchers and governments, they tend to to communicate on a very sort of left brain manner. It's all about facts and you have to eat this and so forth and so forth. And it's not really sexy. I know one campaign which was kind of sexy, that we need to eat 5 vegetables and fruits every day. But in Denmark we had a campaign called 6 all day. And I think because it means 6 during the day. But so that's sort of the number are the same, 6 and 6. So that sort of sticks. So it just means that you need to find other ways of communicating. And the private sector is brilliant about that. They can make us eat all kinds of things we don't need, maybe sometimes we don't like when we first paid it, and pay a lot of money for it. So we need to, and that's all about the right way. It's all about things being delicious, promoted in the right way, and really something that is cool and really aspirational. So we need to be better at combining both when we talk about nutritious food, also for the segments that I'm talking about. So that's one part of it. And another part is, of course, also access. And that is just one other point I want to make, because we live here in, I think most of us can easily buy, these 5 fruits and vegetables every day, or even more if we like to. But new research also tells that if we, for example, take countries like, big countries like India, or Bangladesh, or Pakistan, Zimbabwe, this research tells that if these households should buy 5 fruits and vegetables every day, they would need to use 52% of their income. So it's just not feasible. It's just not happening. So what they are left with is when the child hopefully have had breastfeeding and has to go on to complementary feeding, they would get a poor maize porridge every breast. No, and there's absolutely no nourishment in it. So how can we get more access and affordable products on the market where people source their foods? We also see, in our part of the world, it's mainly the poorer population that really have a higher level of obesity and have, bad food habits, because it is the cheapest. That is just the calories. So that is really an important point as well.
So can you very briefly give one example about what your organization did to make that?
I can maybe give an example where we work in a partnership very concretely in Ethiopia with some Danish partners together with some Ethiopian dairies, and trying to promote milk consumption in general, but also really understanding the local context where half of the population are not allowed to eat any animal-based foods during their fasting periods. They are also Christian. Only women and children are exempt, so we are trying to produce a product that is affordable with a local milk and with some technology from Denmark, and then also try to do demand creation to that target group, which is actually exempt of fasting, but is often not practicing it because it's just easier. There's no milk in those days around the fasting period, so nobody, not pregnant mothers and so forth. So that's an example of where we work together with Danish private sector and local dairies. We work with the government and local farmers, looking at the whole chain.
Yeah, thank you. Then Søren, so from your bio, it says that your job is about leading change. That's a lovely job. So I was wondering, what role can a municipality like City of Copenhagen take in driving change, and also what is that role in a business perspective, which is what we're talking about here. So.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I believe transport is consumption. You buy tickets, you buy bikes, you buy cars, you buy fuel, sometimes you buy flights to Thailand, sometimes you buy your commodities on the internet in China. So basically, at the moment, the transport sector is not very sustainable. Actually, if you look at the car ownership globally, it's increasing. If you look at flights globally, it's increasing. So when we look at the UN sustainability goals, for example, the climate challenge, we have big challenges within the transport sector. I would like to address one example, which of course is about bicycles. Copenhagen likes to see itself as one of the best cities for bikes in the world. And we are very good, and our city council has actually adopted the 17 UN sustainability goals also. We work at being a livable and a healthy and a green city. And if you look at the way we organize bicycling in the city of Copenhagen, we have some successes, and that's my example. If you look at the number of trips to work or education, the way we commute in the city of Copenhagen, 41% of all trips are done by bike. And if you compare with many other cities globally, it's like 1 or 5%. So we have done something in the city of Copenhagen, and our goal is actually to increase the number of trips to work and education up to 50%. And what is the essential for doing that? I think there's three good reasons. The first one is city planning. You need a dense city. Some of you may know the North Harbour, which we call the 5-minute cities. It's a dense city where we want to have 5 minutes to school, 5 minutes to education, 5 minutes to shopping, 5 minutes to the station. So it's much easier for a citizen to walk or bike to the very urban goals instead of many other cities. The second one is traffic planning. We very often increase the width of the bicycle tracks in the city of Copenhagen. We have constructed a number of bridges to shortcut the trips over the harbour, where, for example, some of the bridges are already used by more than 20,000 people on bike every day. And also, if you look at the traffic signals, it's very important for us to make green waves for bikes instead of many other cities where they make green waves for cars. One example is one of the big urban streets called Gwozdz. We succeeded in reducing the number of stops for bikes by 70%, and bicyclists hate to stop for it. So it's a good incentive for the bikes to use the bike if it's a better flow. So creating a better infrastructure and a better system for bikes is essential for also increasing the number of trips by bikes. And we know it because when we ask the bicyclists, why do you use the bike, they say because it's easy and because it's quick. It's not because they want to save the world. So there's a combination in this change process that between the citizens and between the city hall, that you have to make good infrastructure to make the green choices easier for the citizens in transport. And finally, when we talk about sustainability, and also I want to mention the health, the UN Sustainability Health Goal, relating to Novo Nordisk changing diabetes. It's very important for the future health, green city, that you walk and you bike. If you walk or bike 30 minutes per day, your life will be 6 years longer, a healthy life. And if you compare Copenhagen to some of the other global cities, for example in the US, we have today an average of diabetes on 6%, but the risk for cities which is car organized, like for example Houston in the US, they will have a diabetes percentage of 20% within 20 years. So it's also part of the sustainability goal to create possibilities to walk more and to cycle more in cities. And if you want to know more, you can go to the web and look at the Copenhagen website and look at the city of Copenhagen bicycle account, a lot of data, and also of course Novo Nordisk changing diabetes has a lot of data on the development of the diabetes.
Thank you very much for promoting that initiative. We are very pleased to work with with both Copenhagen City and the City of Houston and a number of others. So I think what we have here is by way of introduction, we have messages that talk about the systemic perspective, the linkages between the different targets that you can hit more than one goals with the same stone, and also the need to work in collaboration, in partnerships, etc. So before we open up for questions from you, I would like to ask each of you to challenge what you just heard. So Charlotte, what could Søren do better?
I need my pen.
No, I think the way you tackle it on a community level, I think that best practice or next person, whatever you call it, could link itself very well to some of the more distant communities in the countries where I work, because they don't have access to the grid or to roads and so on. So if we could have some learning and maybe you already do that a lot. I heard you do something there, but it would be great if we could promote that a bit more as a way to take another system to create this more nutritious food.
And Søren, would you challenge in Copenhagen? You probably will.
Well, it's hard to beat. When I'm in Copenhagen, I have a bike here, out in Østerbro, and I'd love to go out and put my suitcase away and get on the bike and go downtown, because it's so much easier than take the car and even go with the bus, and I'm there before the bus. So it is I have to thank you for making this system so flexible and nice. But the problem with big cities is maybe somehow the ownership. And I think what I could recommend is that you make we talked about it having a toll road around Copenhagen, so you don't bring in so many cars. That people should stay out of town with all their personal cars. So I would like to see that in the future. I mean, better infrastructure, more smart mobile, and less cars. I know that is a compromise seen from a political point of view, but there's so many interest in bringing your car all the way up to your work address or your living space or whatever. So that would be my advice. I mean, go even further. I think that's possible.
And then, Steffen, you talked about...
Just a reflection on that.
Yes.
Actually, the City Council, the City of Copenhagen, is much in favor of tollering. So please help us to convince the government to give us the legal opportunities for doing that.
Okay.
Yeah. So you talked about food also and health being part of it. So if you can challenge that to Charlotte and the organization that she represents, which includes food companies. So what would you like to see from food companies going in a more sustainable direction?
If you look at the supply to many shops, I think many of the stores actually use very traditional means of transport, big trucks in the city. So maybe we can convince the stores in the future to use more sustainable means of transport, perhaps smaller trucks, electrically driven trucks, sometimes even bicycles to distribute foods in the city. That would be a very nice development.
Yeah. And by the way, now that we talk about the bikes in Copenhagen, for those of you who are not from this town and who do like Søren, go on a bike now that you're here, just be mindful that people who live in Copenhagen bike exceedingly fast. So just be careful. I have a colleague who came from the US, and she always turned up in the office with bruises on her legs because she had accidents while she was trying to bike, but she was determined. So she stuck with it. But yes. So to your point about the green waves is of course one way of also reducing that kind of traffic polluting that we see. So now it's over to you, and I want to just come back to this notion of how can we as consumers or as citizens make informed choices and drive more sustainable behaviors. And just to put myself on the spot, so when I bought this one, I went to a store and I saw this and I thought this is kind of a nice kimono, so I'd like to buy it. And then the woman said, well, you know what? It's actually sustainable. So how come? Well, it's made of recycled materials. I said, oh, that's kind of nice. Then I can use it for branding. And she said, yeah, it's from our pre-spring collection. So of course that reminds you that even if they use so-called sustainable materials, I probably shouldn't throw it in the water because there will be plastics in it. But then we are not really changing the underlying habits and systems, because if we continue to have 6 seasons of fashion, and I know you will be discussing fashion later on. So just to say, how can I as a consumer make better informed decisions, and how can we as business and you as researchers together provide that level of knowledge so that we all know how to make those better choices. So on that note, I would like to call upon the audience to raise your arms if you have questions, and then we have the roving mics. So there's a question up there, a very eager person. Yes.
Hi, I'm Lucy Middlemas from the University of Leeds in the UK. I'm not following your lead in terms of asking a question. I'm going to ask a different one. I'm partly here because of that question mark, because sustainable lifestyles for everyone question mark. I think is quite an interesting question. We have a couple of sessions after this which are about social differences in sustainable consumption. So my question is for Steffen, and it's about cycling and disability. And I just wonder whether you know what the experiences of disabled people, physically disabled people in Copenhagen are in the presence of Sony bikes, and then how disabled people are able to engage in the practice of cycling in the city, and whether you know anything about that. Thank you.
So thank you for bringing up that perspective on inclusion. So, yeah. Steffen?
Thank you very much. We have a policy. The city has adopted a policy which is saying the city should be for everybody, and it also includes people with handicap, but of course also elderly people and children. So there's a lot of emphasis on putting giving access to people with less accessibility than other people. For example, the constructing ramp on every intersection, so you can easily cross the roads. We have adopted a number of access roads for handicapped people where you can go from A to B through the city. And of course, when you have the intersections with traffic signals, you have not only lights, but you have also sounds to help blind people to cross the city. We are not perfect. I must accept that, but we are every year we are meeting the organizations and making our priorities together with them, where we can improve the physical infrastructure in the city.